Imagine spending 3 or 4 years at a university, graduating with high hopes, and spending months or even years searching for a job. This is the true reality of very many Ugandans in this nation. I am Eboga Brennan Nomara, and this is the Policy Room, where data meets policy. Unemployment does not only affect an individual or their family. However, unemployment affects the economic development of a nation, for instance, Uganda. When young people are unable to find what to do in an economy, the country loses very many productive labor force to other economies where some leave this nation to go and search out for greener pastures. And this affects the productivity of our economy because we are losing the skilled labor force to other economies. Hence, the country loses a lot. But what do the numbers tell us? According to the Labor Market Survey report of 2025 by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the unemployment rate stands at 12.2%. This is the number of people who are unable to get what to do and they are willing to start working in case an opportunity arises. The time-related underemployment rate in this country is at 8.7%. This represents a fraction of people who are working less time compared to what they would like, or people whose skills are underutilized. For instance, take an example of a graduate of mechanical engineering working as a shop attendant in Chikubu, or a graduate of economics working only 2 days a week. This represents underemployment in this nation, of which it is unfair. Additionally, only 10.2% of the people who are employed in this country are working in the formal sector. 10.8% of the people who are employed in this country are working in the formal sector. The formal sector constitutes of businesses, organizations whose businesses are recognized by the government, in that they are well registered by the government, they pay their taxes, they file for NSSF for their employees. For instance, I can give an example of an employee at MTN Uganda. That person is working in the formal sector. However, the informal sector constitutes of 89.2% of people who are employed in Uganda. This is the biggest. The informal sector these are economic activities that are not fully regulated by the government of Uganda. It means they do not have formal records. The employees in that sector do not have a formal contract which can say they are commencing their work today and may they end, they can renew it, and they do not directly pay taxes. I can give an example: the market vendors or the boda boda industry. All those people are working in the informal sector in this nation. These statistics are so much alarming to us as a nation, and they arise an important question is, why are very many young people finding it so hard to find jobs or what to do in this nation? Is it the problem of the government? Is it the problem of the economy? Is it our education institutions? Is it what we are teaching that it's not really being productive to this economy? It arises an important question. And to discuss this, I have to give you an insight of what is leading to such a trend in Uganda. First of all, the practical bit when it comes to higher educations in Uganda. There is limited practical ability of the students who are being produced by these institutions. For instance, most of those students who are being taught in those universities or higher institutions, they're only being taught most on the part of the theoretical part, and little time is being allocated to the practical part. This leaves students in a situation where they cannot balance the knowledge in their theoretical part, and their theoretical knowledge they cannot balance it with the practical knowledge. So when time arises where they have to start applying that knowledge, especially when they're looking for employment in this country, they find it so difficult to balance because the employment sector will be requiring someone who is well versed both in theoretical knowledge and in practical knowledge, of which very many few learners in this country can be able to balance that. And I think most of the institutions, not even most, all of the institutions in Uganda should come up with that leverage where they balance time, which is allocated to the practical bit of the course unit, with the theoretical part of the course units, and this can be done through projects. Let the students be doing projects in each and every course unit so that they can know that we are not only just studying this course unit to write an exam at the end and get done, but they come up with a project where they can write exactly what they have learned. Of this one will give them even an ability to be able to think, because in exams, most of them, it is cram work. You cram and reproduce, you cram and reproduce. However, when there is that practical bit, they are able to discuss among themselves, and this will bring like a form of like an illusion of a practical work. And the institution also should be looking at the time allocated for internship. Students most in this country are studying a course of 4 years or 3 years, and they are doing internship. It might even take 3 months, 2 months, some even 1 month. They are unable to master the skills in the field, especially the practical part, and they are only focusing on the theoretical for the exams they'll be writing the course. So this one gives them a limited experience when it comes to applying the practical knowledge that the economy assumes that after graduating they are full students with enough knowledge in all their fields. However, this is not the case. So there is need for also a partnership between the institutions and the players in the market. I mean the players in the economy. We need that partnership where there are kind of like an exchange program where employers or employees in a particular sector, they come into the universities, be able to interact with the learners, and the learners also go to those institutions. So it should be a partnership of departments so that students can be able to engage with the players in the market, engage with the employees, so that when time arises that they are looking for employment, it's now easy because they have knowledge. Additionally, there is limited industrialization in this country. We want to appreciate the government of Uganda when it comes to supporting industrialization in this country. There are very many industrial parks that have already been established in this country. We have the Mbali Industrial Park, the Kapeka Industrial Park, and we also have the Namave, and so many other more. However, these industrial parks are employing very many youth in this country, of which I credit the government for that, but they are unable to absorb the pressure that has been put in the labor market in this country. We need more industrial parks so that industrialization can drive us. For many countries that have developed in this world, we can give an example of those, the Malaysias, the Indonesias. They were able to take advantage of the manufacturing, and manufacturing can be able to take in a vast amount of youth because it provides very many jobs. For instance, Uganda. Here in Uganda, we have very many raw materials. When it comes to food, when it comes to agriculture, we can come up with so much in that through that industrialization, we are able to create very many jobs when it comes to the chain of value addition, of agro processing, because for us, we are very rich in agriculture because it's the backbone of this nation. I think the government also should, and the policymakers should be able to identify, especially the sectors that are growing very fast in this nation. I can give an example. Agriculture can be growing, so that if they identify those sectors, they are able to direct an investor that if you want to invest in this country, because some of these investors come here, they have money, but they are looking for opportunities. So we are the ones to give them the knowledge that for you to invest well and be able to get a return on your investment, you have to look at this sector, of which industrialization is it is a sector where we should look at so much, because the raw materials are already available in this country. They're available. When it comes to agriculture, when it comes to the minerals, we already have them. So when you take advantage, we can direct investors that go this way. You go and establish your factory because we have enough coffee here. establish it in a region that produces high coffee. You come to another region. This region has been this region grows a lot of wheat in this country. Go and establish a factory there. Go and set up a factory there. There we shall be growing our industrial sector, in that it will even create jobs, because the formal sector is a sector that contributes most to the GDP of this country because it's well regulated. So we have to put more emphasis when it comes to the industrialization part. Furthermore, I will talk about the requirements that are being set up by the employers, especially in this country. Very many employers, especially in the formal sector, have set up very, very tough requirements when it comes to entry positions for very many people in this country. A company advertises a job, and they are requesting, they are looking for persons who have an experience of 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. This does not favor a graduate who has just left university yesterday. It cannot, because you're creating a sequence that these people do not yet have that experience. Now, if you create a situation where you need someone of 5 years, you advertise, you're like, the jobs are there, but we need someone of 5 years. A fresh graduate cannot get into those jobs. Rather, those jobs are being taken up by people who are already in the field. A person switching from this company to this company, of which it does not guarantee that someone who has just graduated. So you're bringing an aspect that people should now start forging around with their CVs to enter a job market, of which if they enter there, then you say, no, these people are not well skilled to handle their positions, because you're creating that position. So it creates a funny sequence that if there is no experience, you're not going to get the job. And if there is no job, there's no experience. So where do the fresh graduates get the experience? And yet they have to get the experience from that job. I think the private sector, especially in collaboration with an initiative from the government, they should come up with I would say they should come up with slight of a partnership, or a rule, or it can be a rule, an initiative that, or a strategy that brings that partnership between an institution and the players in the market, so that they are through that exchange program. And secondly, we have to take note of the apprenticeship programs in this country. Apprenticeship is so much. I want to appreciate the government, especially in 2018, the budget approved the Ugandan National Apprenticeship Program. That program was aimed to connect graduate students to the opportunities that are already in the field. Through that apprenticeship program that is being implemented by the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development today, very many graduates have already gotten very many jobs through that apprenticeship program, because that apprenticeship program links the employers to the graduates. So that link, through that link, they are able not to struggle so much to look for the jobs. And so when it comes to the issue of experience, by the time employers are looking for people, that apprenticeship program, someone comes as a graduate, they train in for like some months as you monitor them. And of course, many companies are starting to take over something called that graduate trainee, where you're looking for, but you have to first train them. So through that initiative, we are able even the young people in this country are able to get into these jobs, and they are able to make lives meet. Beyond that, there is an issue of entrepreneurship in this country. So for very many young people in Uganda who may even fail to look for jobs, or some even have an interest, they are looking at options of entrepreneurship, because Uganda has a very big market, and someone who engages in business and masters it and does it very well, they are able to get a lot of money and profits through that business. However, the youth are having a challenge here when it comes to entrepreneurship. What if some people, their parents are unable to give them money? What if some people, they are coming from a poor background? I would say a poor background, for a humble word, a poor background. They are coming from such families, but they would love to access finances, because it's the responsibility of the government to look after its citizens as stated in the constitution. But now these people are facing a challenge of access to finance. How do they get the finances? I want to appreciate the government when it comes to initiatives like the PDM, the Myoga. They are working out that people are getting money and they are able to use the money. However, we also have to look at the knowledge when it comes to access to finance. When you access finances, How do you use that money to that business, that economic activity that is going to generate for you income or wages, whatever? How do we do it? How should we look at it? Because many young people could access finance but do not have the ability or the skills on how to use that money. You can have money without knowing how to use it. So the government, the private sector, and the policymakers should look at this, that the youth are facing a challenge of accessing finances. They are facing a challenge of mentorship when it comes to those finances. And also for those who have already conquered the first two stages of accessing finance and mentorship, they are having a challenge of market, because all in all, we have to have a market for us to develop. Because some who are engaged in economic activities in businesses, they are facing a challenge that where do they access the market? Because agriculture being the backbone of this country, many of them are engaged in agricultural activities. It goes to poultry, it goes to farming, and so when they produce their products and they are able to gain everything, when they are able to gain them, so where do they sell their goods? Because some of the activities they are engaging in, they are producing perishable items in this country. For example, someone who plows the garden then is able to produce tomatoes. Tomatoes are perishable, they can get rotten anytime. So there is a need where the government should find a way that we should look at the market. The market is very important for these young people in this country, so that the young people in this country, after going through all that process, they can be able to sell to even other countries outside our neighboring countries. They should be able to import our products. That's how we are going to overcome the challenge of unemployment in this country, because when they're doing those activities, there is so much that is generated in the chain. When it comes to transportation, all that is a chain creating jobs to other people. From one person is creating it. When it comes to transportation, comes to loading those goods, offloading, when it comes to record keeping, even the government will be benefiting from that, because it will be generating revenue through the taxes that are being issued at the border points, and also for the development of this nation. And I would love to say there is also a slow growth of the formal sector in this country. The slow growth of the formal sector in this nation is not in relation to the labor force that is being exerted on the economy. The formal sector is growing at a very slow rate, of which the growth of the formal sector affects a lot the economy of Uganda, because the Ugandan economy gains a lot of money from the formal sector. However, the government should look at this, that if you are benefiting from the formal sector in this country, of which is contributing much of the taxes, the government should look at an initiative that which sector is growing very, very fast. Now looking at the private sector, which sector is growing very, very fast? Which skills are most desired in this economy? Because through that we are able to identify the skills or the sectors that are growing at a very faster rate, and we identify them. So when an investor comes in, we are able to direct them that go to this field, you're going to gain a lot. Go, if you are setting up like a school or something, we have to invest in training the Ugandans this skill. Through that, we shall be taking advantage of what we already have, because we should just identify the sectors that are very, very important to us, because not every sector is growing at the same rate, and that one should also reflect in our national budget. The national budget should also be looking at that area, that if we are to allocate money for the financial year, we should look at the sectors that are growing. Those are sectors that should get much, because we know if they are growing too at a faster rate, they are able to boost our economy. It will create more jobs, hence we shall solve the unemployment rate of graduates in this country, and it will create very many, and will lead to the GDP growth in this country. I would like to say, noting this, I would love to say that the unemployment issue in this country is not primarily about the number of jobs in this country, but it is about the quality of the formal jobs in this country. So, as I conclude, the unemployment rate in this country will only be solved not only focusing on the number of jobs. However, we have to look at the pace of our industrialization. We have to look at the access to finance. we have to look at the ability of the government to identify sectors that are growing. And through that, we are able to create jobs. We are able to absorb the pressure that has been put on our economy, especially the pressure arising from the especially the pressure that is arising from the labor market in this country. When you look at those areas, we shall be able to create opportunities. We shall be able to create opportunities that will be sustainable. Because when we are looking at the national growth of this country, we should not only be anchored to the number of jobs, that how many jobs should we create. However, we should be looking at the sustainable opportunities and coming up with an initiative, a policy, or a strategy, or a plan that will lead to creation of sustainable opportunities for this nation, that will lead to the national development, and it will lead to improvement of the livelihood of very many young people in this country. Because when an opportunity is sustainable, we are not clinged on to looking at the present date. We look at the future, because sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future generations from coming up with their own needs. Having that kind of mentality and that kind of ambition and that kind of zeal, we shall be able to come up with strategies. We shall be able to look at programs. We shall be able to be clean to create opportunities that meet the needs of very many Ugandans, and we shall grow to even levels we have never thought of. The Vision 2040, we can even achieve it before even reaching 2040, when we are to look at these sectors, when we are to look at these issues, because there are these issues that are affecting our country. Finally, the government of Uganda should prioritize the concepts. It should prioritize it should prioritize the obligations that have been written in the Constitution of Uganda. Thank you very much for joining us today. I remain Eboga Brennan Omara, and this is the Policy Room. See you next Saturday as we discuss issues that will lead to the development of this nation. Bye.